The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Thank you, Tally Olson. I am back, and you are comfortably zoned with me, Ralph Tyko. I am in Alameda, California, right across the bay from San Francisco, and talking to my old buddy, Jerry Feitelberg. How are you, Jerry?
I'm doing well, and you are absolutely right. I'm getting older by the day.
Well, I'm right behind you and keeping up with you, I might add, because the idea of getting old is good. The idea of not getting old is bad. So we're doing it. We're doing it for sure, and I'm grateful to you. We have an election. We had an election. It was terrific, just what we wanted, or was it?
Yes. Yeah.
Is he gonna go nuts and not leave the office? Is he? What do you think? I mean, this is Thursday, and it's the 10th of December. Trump filed a lawsuit on behalf, or Texas filed a lawsuit on behalf of Trump that really scares me. It is threatening the fabric of our democracy. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, he filed the suit, and now 18 other attorney generals in states across the country have joined the suit, as has 106 members of the House of Representatives as of 3 o'clock this afternoon. Is it Congress? Is it have senators gone along with this too, or just the House? Not that I know of. The problem with this, and it's a bunch of nonsense, and I'll tell you why. The election results were certified by all 50 states and had to be certified by December 8th, and that was done. So all the state executives, electoral executives have said, yes, everything is fine in our state, and we have certified that the election results are correct. So they're not lying, they're telling the truth. This is just an attempt to try and get the Congress or the Supreme Court to send it to the Congress and to the House of Representatives, where they think that by disqualifying and overturning 150 million votes, that they can then have the states vote on the election. And because there are more Republican states than Democratic states, and each state gets one vote. It's not proportionate. So Wyoming, which has 750,000 people, has one vote, which is equal to California's 40 million people, which is ludicrous. But that's what they're trying to do. It's not going to happen. The Supreme Court is not going to overturn the will of the people. But that's number one. What they're doing is you have to remember, how can Texas sue other states? They have to respect the laws in the other states. They can't sue them. They have no standing to sue them. Texas was not harmed. Their votes all counted for Trump. Trump won all the electoral votes in Texas. Whatever Pennsylvania did, or Michigan did, or Georgia did, or Wisconsin did, by certifying the election, those things, their procedures have been upheld in court. All the lawsuits against them that the Trump people did were all thrown out of court. Trump has filed 50 lawsuits. He's lost 49 of them. He has these characters running around yelling fraud. The votes were stolen. It's just terrible. And then when they get into court, the judges ask them, was there any fraud? And Giuliani, if they lie to the judge, they know they'll get disbarred. And Giuliani backed off. Sidney Powell backed off or thrown out of court. Jenna Ellis thrown out of court. All these things that they've done. So they have no credibility. and this is just another waste of taxpayers' dollars. Trump is hoping it goes to the Supreme Court, and he thinks that the three Supreme Court justices that he put on the court are going to violate the law, violate the Constitution, and hand him the election. It's not going to happen.
Okay. CNN right now is up in arms about this. Their reasoning is, how could X number of Congress people be doing this, disregarding their oath to the Constitution? This is very scary, the amount of power this guy has, and he's continuing to raise money. He's raised $250 million.
Yeah,
and
it's going into his pocket. It's going into his pocket.
Right into it. He can do with it what he wants. Literally, he could defend himself, and there will be defending to be done if and when he's removed from office or leaves office, because New York City is waiting for him, New York State. It's a crazy world we're living in.
Yeah, there has to be consequences for what these attorney generals are doing. Our good friend Peter Golenbach down in Tampa is suggesting that these guys should be disbarred, and removed from office and disbarred. In addition, I would say that not only they should be disbarred, but the 106 members of Congress who are joining the lawsuit, who are in effect engaging in sedition, which is fomenting an uprising to overturn the election, they also should be arrested and prosecuted. This is serious stuff. They're trying to undermine our Constitution and our democracy. Never in my lifetime would I ever thought that something like this would ever happen. But the shit show for the last 4 years is getting into high gear right now. And the sooner Trump leaves, the better it's going to be.
Okay. No one can say it better than you, Jerry Feitelberg. How about that?
Thank you. Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
All right. Let me segue into something that's been on my mind for a long time. It was exacerbated this month by baseball's hiring of Tony, or not baseball, but the Chicago White Sox hired Tony La Russa, rehired because he originally started out with them, as their manager, and brought to mind a lot of things for me. I'm in the process of writing a book. A major chapter in the book, the baseball book, as you know, Jerry, is entitled Mary Jane is My Mistress, and Mary Jane is my girlfriend, and baseball is my mistress. I have had a love affair with baseball for a long time, and had the opportunity to not only do podcasts, have a podcast network, which is predominantly baseball, but I was the Topps representative for baseball cards on the West Coast in the 80s and 90s. And I got to meet and sign an awful lot of players to their Topps contracts. And I have a world of stories and recollections about those days. So it's going to be a terrific book. One of the chapters is on PEDs in baseball. And La Russa brought it to mind for me while talking to you. He was the manager of the A's when this entire controversial issue came up. At one time, steroids were legal for ball players, and they're not any longer. There's a whole bunch of rigmarole going on. My point is, Jerry, you were the pharmacist for the Oakland A's in the latter part of the McGuire years. Yeah. And we've talked over the years about what went on and what didn't go on. And you've never really copped to the fact that that these guys were using or weren't using. And I thought, because we're not getting any younger, and I'm writing this book, and I'm not going to write another one, I thought we'd get the full story from the former pharmacist of the Oakland A's, Jerry Feitelberg. The years you were there, what did you observe along these lines?
I joined the A's in the 1993 season, and I was there for 6 seasons. Now, Canseco left the club at the end of in September of '92 when he was traded to the Texas Rangers. But in his book, Juiced, he and going back to the 80s to 1988, I remember in '88 the A's were playing the Red Sox in Boston, and the fans in Boston were getting on Canseco for juicing way back then. And then he said that, he was juicing along with McGuire, and he would do the injections in the stalls in the men's room in the clubhouse. Now, I don't know if you've ever been into the men's room in the clubhouse, but they're very narrow. And one person can get in there comfortably, but for 2 big guys like those 2 guys, it'd be a tight fit to do the injections. But that's what he said, and you got to remember, all the people that were named in the book, not one of them ever sued Canseco for libel. So it was totally...
in all his writings, he has never been accused of lying about anything.
No, and I found Jose to be truthful. I believe what he has to say. So these guys were juicing, and as you said, it wasn't illegal to do it at that time. Baseball had no restrictions against it. They weren't doing any testing. And then, of course, when I joined the club in '93, McGuire was with the club through halfway through the '97 season, and he had some health issues with the plantar fasciitis in his feet, and he missed part of the season. But he was a good teammate. He was always there cheering the guys on. I saw him working out in the weight room. He had muscles, and it never occurred to me that he was juicing. And when I found out that he was, I was kind of disappointed. And his locker was next to Jason Giambi. I think Giambi came up in '95, and Giambi admitted to doing it. But he was a tremendously talented player too. Giambi had over 400 home runs in his career. Of course, McGuire had 580 home runs around that number.
Right.
And I remember one day, the last day of the 1995 season, when that was the day that Walter Haas passed away, and I was sitting in the clubhouse, and we're watching the game on TV, and McGuire hit a walk-off home run that made it all the way out to the concession stand in center field, which was about 500 feet. Yeah, and Jimmy Lefevre, who was the third base coach, came down. He came running into the clubhouse yelling, "Did you see that? I've never seen anything hit so far in my life." And it was just amazing. And maybe because he was juicing, he got the extra distance. I don't know. But I do know that I asked the trainers, and you asked about La Russa. And yes, I believe La Russa knew what was going on. But as I said, it wasn't illegal, and it was his job to win baseball games. And it was his livelihood depended on his guys juicing. So he probably did look the other way. He may not have encouraged it, but if they were doing, he wasn't going to stop it because they were winning games. You remember the A's were very good in 88, 89, and 90. They won 3 pennants in a row. And they were the Bash brothers. They got a lot of press. La Russa was a genius as a manager. So it probably went on. I asked the trainers about it. And I said, did you know anything about it? And they may have lied to me. And they said, no, if we suspect it or if we find out that they're doing it, we have to tell the doctors about it, and they will stop it. So it's possible they didn't want me to know. You know, there's an axiom in baseball that says whatever happens in the clubhouse stays in the clubhouse. So they're not going to tell me anything that, you know, I might go outside and talk to someone and repeat something that happened, which I never did. Because
did you ever count syringes? No. I never saw. I know they had syringes in the med pack, but I never saw the players ever using it ever. Okay. Do you believe Canseco?
Yeah, I do. I think Jose was telling the truth. When I saw in 2005, when they had that hearing, and it was so embarrassing for McGuire, because when he came up, what he learned from Tony La Russa is that whatever happens yesterday, you got to turn the page. You can't do a damn thing about it. So, and McGuire's philosophy, and McGuire is not a bad guy. Don't get me wrong; he's a bit moody at times. You can have the good Mark McGuire, and you can have the bad Mark McGuire. But overall,
do you suppose the moves are brought on by the steroids?
Yeah, who knows? Could be. But he was, you know,
because he was never moody when I met him in '88 when he had first signed his contract. He had already signed a Topps contract. He had an Olympic card. So there was no pressure on me talking to him, getting to know him, wanting to sign or have anything from him. I spoke with him for a half an hour. He was a happy-go-lucky kid. And from there, you cut to that hearing where he was absolutely brutal as a human being.
He didn't want to answer the questions. He didn't want to talk about it. He knew you couldn't change history. You couldn't go back and change it. But he just wanted to talk about what he was doing now, not what was happening then. And all he had to do is, to be quite honest, is fess up to it. Said, yes, I did it. I didn't know it was wrong.
It was a sign of our times. Everybody did it at that time.
Everybody did it. It wasn't illegal. He just said it wasn't illegal at that time. I did it, and so what? You know, that's. But if it was wrong and illegal, it is illegal in the sense to use a drug that's not prescribed by a doctor for appropriate medical use. So, you know, he was getting
that's
the drug.
Illegal. That's
illegal. Right.
All right.
But baseball wasn't coming down on it because of that.
No, they weren't coming down on it because from top to bottom, everybody knew. But it was a money-making machine. The Bonds, the Sosas, the Sosa-McGuire thing, it saved baseball after the strike in '95. And nobody wanted to kill the golden goose.
Did it ever? The strike was in '94. August 12th was the last game in 1994. I was in the clubhouse. We were watching Randy Johnson pitch. Dennis Eckersley was standing right in back of me, and he says, "Man, that guy's throwing some sort of gas tonight." Wow, he was enjoying Randy Johnson's performance. But they went on strike, and the public. And it was the first time in 90 years that we didn't have a World Series. First time since 1904, because John McGraw did not want to play the Red Sox in the World Series. But it was the first time that Major League Baseball did not have the World Series. We had it through World War I, World War II, Korea, but not in 1994. And in 1995, you remember, they had 2 spring trainings because they couldn't they couldn't settle the strike until late in spring training in 1995.
They had one with the Scabs were going to play.
Yeah, exactly.
And that didn't go over very well with the fans.
Not at all. Nor the players. Not at all.
And those players were minor league players who were permanently banned from being in the Major League Player Association for life over that.
There were consequences for it. So when 1998 happened and McGuire and Sosa are going on this historic run where two players were going to have over 60 homers. McGuire broke Roger Maris's record of 61, and Sosa was right behind him. McGuire finished with 70, and Sosa finished with 66. And I think Sosa had 2 more years where he hit more than 60. And Bonds in 2001 had 73. Bonds said, "Holy Toledo, if this guy can hit 70 homers, I can do that." And that's when I think he started juicing. And
that's how the story goes. And the question is still out on the kid and Griffey. Wonder if he just guilty by association, you could say, but I wonder if he ever enhanced. I wonder if Chipper Jones, some of the people who denied it the most vehemently when and if they were doing it.
You got to remember that Griffey and Bonds and Jones probably never tested positive for steroids. In the 2003 Mitchell report named a lot of players, including Big Papi David Ortiz. Ortiz maintains he never juiced. He never tested positive. So we don't know if the information in the Mitchell report is correct. You just don't know. We know that Manny Ramirez was juicing. He got caught twice when he was with he got what, two sit downs because of juicing. Melky Cabrera, when he came with the Giants, and we were doing the Milkman, and people were loving Melky, and then he got caught juicing, and then didn't even say goodbye to his teammates when he left the clubhouse. He left with a bad taste. The Giants were very unhappy when he left. So these guys all did it for whatever reason, and I have you said you talked with Bobby Estalella the other day.
Yes, I did.
Estalella was known as a juicer, and Marvin Bernard, who played for the Giants, it didn't help them with batting average. But you're saying that Estalella was a catcher, and that's a brutal position. It takes a lot out of you. I talked with Ray Fosse. We had dinner with Ray one night, and we were talking about catching. And Ray was old school. Ray would catch both ends of a doubleheader, and then if there were a day game after a night game, he'd be out there. He said you don't catch both ends of a doubleheader. And if there's a day game after night game, you sit it out. He said they're coddling the players. That's not baseball. And he was one of these guys who go out nitty gritty, just lived in the dirt, so to speak. And that's the kind of player he was. But the times have changed, and as you say, when you catch a doubleheader, you're pretty damn well exhausted. And if you go out the next day and catch, your body doesn't have time to recover. So a lot of guys were using HGH, human growth hormone. First of all, it was undetectable in a urine test. You can get detected in a blood test, but it was undetectable in a urine test, and they would recover faster with the HGH. And I suspect that's maybe what Estalella was using.
Well, Estalella clearly was using, according to my interview with him, he was using it for recovery. And his injuries early on in his career were monumental. I want you to go back and listen to his interviews. So, and he claims that he wasn't alone. Again, 80%, upwards of 80% of those playing were indulging. My question is, what about today? How many people? Human growth hormones are still indetectable. I wonder how many players are using those as we speak.
There may be some. They're getting tested more often. I hope that they're not using it, but nonetheless, players keep getting caught. Robinson Cano is being set down. He has to sit out the 162 game season.
That's addition by subtraction for the Mets because they get to play McNeil there and they get to save an overinflated salary that was agreed to by a former general manager, Brody, who's no longer there. So it's good, but it's indicative of the sign of our times. You know who I sympathize for or with is the player who's on the bubble and doesn't want to use, but almost has to keep up with the crowd. He's competing.
I agree with you 100% on that, because not only the player on the bubble, but the guys that are the starters, that they want to make these big contracts. You know, they want to set themselves up and get a 7-year contract for $200 million.
By then they've already been doing
sure.
steroids,
sure.
or they wouldn't be competing at that level. But I'm talking about the guy coming up who just wants to do it the right way, and there was a big article in Sports Illustrated about 10 years ago about a bunch of guys who came up in the Braves organization and felt that their lives had been not ruined, but it would have been great to be a star. Would have been great to play on an equal playing field, and they realized for one reason or another, and basically I think it's self-survival, because the long-term effects of using steroids can be horrible. You can elaborate on that. You're a pharmacist. I had a mother of my son use prednisone for lupus for a long time, and it ended up destroying her circulatory system, or kidneys, or heart, this, that, and the other thing. So why don't you talk a little bit as a pharmacist about the pitfalls?
Well, we've had a number of athletes that have died as a result of steroid use or other drug uses too. Three cases come to mind. One is Lyle Alzado, who was a great football player with the Oakland Raiders. He died very young. John Matuzak, the Twos, he died of a Darvocet overdose, which was a painkiller. And Ken Caminetti, former MVP in the National League with Houston and San Diego, he died of drug use. And
he died of an overdose after getting out of rehab.
Yeah.
That was horrible.
There's a fourth guy too that was using cocaine, is Steve Howe, the relief pitcher with the Dodgers. He had a bad habit. He couldn't get off the drug, and he died in a car crash. So there are consequences for using drugs. A lot of these guys, there was I think there was a pitcher, was it Grimsley, one of those guys that was going down and having the drugs shipped in from Mexico, and he's distributing to the players.
Yes, I remember that.
So they're obtaining the drugs illegally. There may be physicians that they can go to and get prescriptions for the things, for the different steroids. The weightlifters, as you know, have been doing steroids for years to build up muscle mass, and a lot of the players would go to the weightlifters, and they knew more about these anabolic steroids than most pharmacists and doctors know. And they would get them from Mexico. If they couldn't get them here, they get the drugs in Mexico. And
ironically, because ligaments are not designed for muscle mass, ligaments and tendons go bad with the bulk, and so it's a vicious cycle. And I think that's what happened with Maguire's feet. He bulked up too much that his feet couldn't handle it, and that caused the major injury of his career. So all kinds of things when you mess with Mother Nature. How about that? Not nice to remember that commercial. Not nice to mess with Mother Nature. And that wasn't a drug commercial. It would have been a great one today, right?
Yeah, for sure. But it's still going on, and these people, they're going to try and get an edge no matter what. There's a lot of competition for the jobs in baseball. You take a guy that finally makes his way to baseball, and he's got just a few years to make the big bucks. They're going to do everything that they can to stay on top. And if it means taking these substances, and if they can get away with it, they're going to do it. And we've said it's not right, but that's what they're doing. And you go back to, you wonder about guys like Nolan Ryan and Roger Clemens, who they both pitched they were about 45, 46 years old, throwing fastballs at 98, 99 miles an hour. And you say, that's not possible. That's not supposed to happen. Were they physical freaks? I don't know. Or were they juicing? And neither one of them tested positive, but they're suspect. And
Clemens' wife, they got Clemens' wife on something, using needles, and he palmed it off on her. Clemens was a user. I got to tell you, I have suspicions that go along with what you just said about Nolan Ryan. I can't believe he wasn't a juicer. And that's just it. That's it's an opinion, but wonder about Randy Johnson, the aforementioned Randy Johnson.
Don't know. Don't know. He was so big. He whipped that ball. And asked John Kruk about having to hit against Randy Johnson. I think he was scared out of his mind having to go up against Randy. But going back,
John Kruk was a very funny guy. He said, "I'm not an athlete. I'm a baseball player."
Right. But going back to Clement, Andy Pettit admitted doing it, and it may not keep him out of the Hall of Fame. And
Pettit's got about 28% at the latest count. Maguire shouldn't have been in the Hall of Fame anyway.
Maybe.
That's Maguire was one-dimensional, and he didn't have an average, and he should not be in. But Bonds and Clemens, by all accounts, they were a sign of their times. And if you're going to put, you're going to put one in, you got to put the other. And if you're not going to put either of them in, that's what's a Hall of Fame without them. What's a Hall of Fame without Rose? What's a Hall of Fame without Feitelberg? How about that?
Well, you also have a couple guys in the Hall of Fame that are suspect, and that's Mike Piazza and Pudge Rodriguez. They were both suspicious of using steroids, and they're in the Hall of Fame. And so, and they had a hit against guys that were juicing, like Clemens and Ryan. So it was all over the place, and those guys, Ryan's in the Hall of Fame. So to keep Clemens out, Clemens has 350 wins. You can't keep him out. You can't
Right.
keep Bonds up. 762 home runs, 7 MVPs. Clemens got 7 Cy Youngs. These are incredible performers. They belong in the Hall of Fame. So, nothing. Barry has admitted there's nothing he can do about it, so he doesn't worry about it. And I guess that's McGuire the same thing. He can only worry about things that you can control, not what someone else can do. So they've taken that position, and that's fine. If they get in, it's okay. If they don't, they know what they did, and they were well paid for it, and they have nice lives, and I hope they live a long time.
Yeah. Hope we all do, Jerry. Thank you for a terrific podcast, my friend. We will talk within a couple of weeks.
Yeah, we'll do it, and hopefully we'll be going up to Nations and having a great burger one of these days.
I can't wait. Believe me, that's one of the things I miss. Thank you, Jerry Feitelberg. Thank you, everybody, for listening. The Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. I'm Ralph Tyko, the weak link of it all. Happy trails, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned Network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.